we go. How's it going, guys? Everybody stand up. 10 seconds. Stand up. Shake it out. We all train salespeople all the time, and for some reason we forget all of our best tips and tricks when we train people who are in enablement. So maybe say hi to the person next to you, shake their hand, give them a smile, say good morning. All right, and sit down if you all have experienced salespeople not giving a shit about something that you have presented. Huh, so 100% of you experienced that. Sweet. Locked and loaded. All right, guys. So in all seriousness, I think all these presentations start to blend together. There are definitely some common themes. There are stats. There are strategies. Mine is not all that different, just structured in a little bit different way. I have a different viewpoint on it, which I'll get into in a second here. But just quickly, I guess what qualifies me to stand up here, other than Jordan reached out to me. I personally don't think I know a whole lot about enablement yet. Only because I think we're all learning at a very fast pace, and it's such a new world still for all of us. So I don't know that I'm any more qualified than anybody else to be talking to you about how to get salespeople to give a shit, because that might be the most impossible thing on planet Earth to do. But I've spent some time in sales, like many people in here, both from a global and US-based perspective. I spent a stint in growth marketing, which kind of connects sales and enablement. And then from there, I did a hybrid role where I focused heavily on enablement, but I also carried a number, which was awesome because I got to experience, hey, this is what's working, and hey, this isn't. And then I was the person training myself, training everybody else. So that was cool to kind of do some testing. And then most recently, took more formal positions in the enablement world. And then as of January, I was asked to lead a team that focuses on global sales product readiness. That's a mouthful. But basically our job is to take what product marketing or our product teams do and make it sales ready. And in that process is really where I've started to identify why salespeople specifically don't give a shit and what we can do about it. So kind of covered a little bit of what I do today. I tried really hard on my transitions and animations. So, if you guys want to clap at the end for all that stuff, that'd be awesome. Because I think some of us are terrible at putting presentations together, and I did not have creative help me. So, I'm pretty proud of this one. But anyway, so we have about an 800 person go-to-market org, majority in sales that I support, with about 100 of those individuals being technical technical individuals, SCs, pre-sales, et cetera. Pretty straightforward, right? Our job is just make salespeople's worlds easy, right? Deliver product training at scale, strategy for product and positioning. And so how, with all the experience that I have in specifically at Zendesk, and focusing on that gap of, hey, our sellers are not caring, I just kind of went out and I got a laugh. Did I get a laugh there? That's cool. First time my wife doesn't laugh at anything I do. So I asked 50 AEs. I just went out and I was like, hey, what are 2 things you hate most about enablement? Raise your hand if you have one that you think maybe they said. What do you think your sellers hate most about enablement? Constantly having to go to presentations. What else? Too much content. Overtraining, something we all probably do too much. What on the back? Metrics. What else? Too long. Probably like this presentation I'm about to give you. Okay, so 78% agreed with this statement. Enablement pretends to know what sales is like. This is something that I find extremely irritating because as many of you, I've spent time in sales. So when I give a presentation, I do have valid reasons for standing in front of them or giving them a program. But more importantly, we all work with sales on a regular basis. So we do kind of get what sales is like. But I'll give you some tricks that I've put into place here. And then 86% agree with content's not relevant. I think this is the big one that I'm going to spend a lot of time on today. Do I have anybody in here that is product marketing? Sorry. For those of you that are, don't take any offense to the things that I'm saying. Product marketing is a huge, huge key to the success of any organization, but sometimes they overcomplicate it. They take things and they look at the market, and I think Scott was talking about this, and also Vlad, but they do this one-to-many approach, and then they give it to sales, and they expect sales to know how to apply it. So we'll talk a little bit more about this. So why this topic? I actually changed a whole bunch of slides like 2 days ago because I read this Harvard Business Review article. Just take a second to digest some of those stats. Scary shit when you're in learning and development and learning and delivery and training that people don't actually care at all what we do and what we deliver. It's pretty crazy. And frankly, when I spend 60 hours a week putting stuff together and I read stats like this, it makes me want to quit. And maybe go pour wine somewhere. But again, you can read. I've tagged this article in multiple places throughout my presentation. Definitely a good one. It's quick. It links to a bunch of different good stuff. So, how many people have been given something close to this or can relate to this, right? You go into work that day, maybe you get a Slack message, those dreaded Slack messages that say, hey, my AEs are asking for XYZ, or maybe it's from product marketing, and they say, hey, we're rolling out this new feature or function, or maybe it's ProServe, and they're like, hey, we have to do training, and the requested need for training is live training, webinar, ASAP, right now, because God forbid if we ever wait more than a day or two to train on something that was irrelevant yesterday. Raise your hand if you've experienced something like this. Should be 100% too, 2 for 2. Okay, so I'm going to kind of keep this problem and this problem throughout the next few slides here, but just keep that in mind as we're going through, right? So I've been given that, and immediately in my head I go, awesome, but salespeople still don't give a shit. Doesn't matter the topic, doesn't matter who's delivering it, how they're delivering it. There still seems to be this problem of salespeople not caring about what we're delivering. So today, I'm going to focus on three focus areas. Yes, I crossed those out as I was developing this presentation, as I dwindled it down from 5 to 3. Thank you for the laugh. Anyway, so we'll focus on 3 key areas and jumping into what those areas are. Broken down into 3 core kind of statements or just kind of, feedback from AEs. Our delivery was below average, right? So we've left trainings, and these are kind of the 3 that I like to focus on. The delivery was below average. Our training lacked relevance and proof of importance. Our enablement content was shit. I think, again, that's the one I'm going to focus a lot on. So jumping into it, in your head, what do you want to get from my session? Hopefully, again, I'm treating you guys like AEs, so hopefully you guys are taking notes. Maybe jot down 1 or 2 things that you either have questions for myself or that you would hope to get from the session to help your reps care more about what you're delivering. What I'm hoping you will gain is a couple tactics, maybe some confidence and time saves. Because at the end of the day, I think we could all use a little bit of all of that. I know I could definitely use a little bit more of the last one. So if I can help you do that to any degree, we'll leave here with a successful next 15 minutes. Cool. I'm out of breath. I'm talking too fast. Our training lacked relevance and proof of importance. So focusing on this one. Anybody have any idea why 7 days is so important in terms of relevance, content consumption? Yeah. Tell me more about that. Yeah. Did you read the article before I got here? No? Pretty close. The forgetting curve, also extremely, extremely scary for me and probably everybody else sitting in this room, is that we have about 6 days to apply what we are teaching, or we have failed miserably. It is absolutely vital. Go ahead. Absolutely vital for us to be paying attention to these stats. If we're not, again, you will feel every time that you walk out of a room that they didn't care, and it's most likely because we're not putting it into application. We're not pushing that content through. So how do we stop that? How do we make sure, right? Well, first of all, you can ask these two questions every single time. How often can the training content be applied? So going back to that example I used early on, I use my face a lot because I think it's funnier to see yourself on screen while you're presenting, and it's not. I'm learning. But anyways, so how often can the training and content be applied and or used? These two questions should be asked every time someone comes to you with something. Every single time, ask it twice, maybe 3 times, and just to make sure, ask somebody else that works with that person how often. So if it's a rep coming to you, ask other reps. If it's a manager, ask the reps how often that actually happens. We're actually going through building playbooks at Zendesk, and so I think it was the VP was maybe at an he was at an offsite planning for the year, and everybody in the room who were also VPs are like, we need playbooks. And then we down leveled and went and had a conversation with the director of one of the segments, and they're like, no, we don't need playbooks. We need elements of the playbook. Again, the point I'm trying to get at is qualify the request. Go in, ask other people. Is it part of their sales process is the second one. You should have a defined sales process today. I'm sure many of you have some sort of methodology. We use MEDPIC. If it doesn't fit in MEDPIC, I don't really want to see it. If it doesn't, and it should, right? Everything we do and deliver should fit somewhere in there. Whether it's a feature launch, well, how does it apply to a solution, and how does that solution apply to some sort of sales motion that they're in? So I implemented something kind of like this. And again, this is ever evolving, but this is a 7-day rule. Basically, if they don't use it in 7 days, I readjust how I actually train and what content I deliver, right? So that 7 days is vital to the success of any content or program or training because, again, as we just saw, people forget stuff very quickly. So I want to make sure that if I'm going to deliver something, it's something that they use within 7 days. That way I can reassure it, right? If they don't, let's push it out into a one-pager and let's wait until it becomes more of a common theme, right? So if PMM comes to you and says, I need to roll out this, feature set and I need to train on it today, I would immediately ask them, how often do you think it's going to be talked about in a sales conversation? If they don't know the answer to that, I would send them back on their way and have them figure that out, right? Okay, so what are some ways you can establish topic relevance? I'm going to call on people. Hopefully you're paying attention. Back, somewhere in the back. Flannel shirt. That's you, green. No, right in front of you. Yeah? Anything you have? How do you establish topic relevance? No? Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
I mean, if you hit it beyond it, like you can't just the leaders or just the field reps have to be a combination of those, like understanding from the top what are the top
Sure. These are some common ones, right? Obviously, I think you hit on that. Asking data is going to be huge. Scott talked about this. I think Scott's presentation is kind of the underlining theme that we should all be following, right? There's structure, there's data, there are reasons we maybe implement something versus don't. I would take his entire presentation and I would plug it right here as like the things you should be paying attention to. The other thing, how many of you guys use Gong or Chorus? Raise your hand. How much easier has that made your life? A lot easier, because you can spot common themes, right? So Gong is amazing. I was actually being demonstrated Gong not too long ago, and he literally stopped the conversation. He was a friend of mine. He left Zendesk and went to Gong, and he said, "Oh man, I've been talking too much," because Gong measures, how much an individual has been talking versus who they're talking to, and they've found that if they talk less than 30%. That they are more likely to win that deal. So again, awesome tool. If you're not using something like that, I would heavily recommend that you go down that path and start looking at technology to help you. Once you kind of establish a little bit of a relevance, if you want to put it into place, and you're not totally sure it's going to be applicable to the entire organization, start with a 0 to hero method. And I'll take a second to explain this. So what I did when I was carrying a quota and also enabling is I went out and I found the people who were the worst, or at least like the worst in what I was trying to train on. I took them, and I applied my training to them, and then I just watched how it progressed. This is not scalable. Gong is scalable. Technology is scalable to put into place. But for those of you who don't have those tools, you can start there, right? Start with a population, maybe those individuals who are just missing quota, roll out the training there and see what happens, right? All right, so the second thing we're going to talk about, our enablement content sucks. Insert word there. I'm sure salespeople have a ton of feedback here. This is where I feel like I'm spending the most time lately because my job currently has put me right in the middle of sales and product. And so I spend all of my time taking in content and then pushing it out and making sure that it's applicable. So where does this problem start for when salespeople get a piece of content, they get a program, they get a training, etc., and they think the sales content or the content that's being delivered is crappy? It starts because product marketing, or product, again, I don't want to talk too poorly amongst products, but the organization doesn't have a process, a filtration system to push that content through to make sure that it's relevant, right? So often this is what we see in organizations. We see an idea or product marketing coming up with an idea or content and then just flips it to sales, like Scott was talking about. That one-to-many approach and that relevance goes away, right? So this is super, super vital. What can you do about it? Put this in place, right? Put the system in place. Put a sales filter in there. You put a sales enablement person in between content creation and the sales individuals. That content is much more likely to be effective. And there are a few ways that I have done this, since this is primarily what I'm focusing on right now. I'll walk through what those are. So we want to establish a few things. Number one, intake documentation. When somebody comes to you with an idea, you should have a document walking them through the expectation that you have for the content you're being given to be then given to sales, right? Obviously, that's important. The second thing is consumption framework. How do you want your reps actually to consume information? Do you want it to be just a one-pager? Should it be a live training? Should it be a full deck? Should it be peer-to-peer review, etc.? From there, a review team. This is vital. You should have a tiger team of people. We call them tiger teams. I think that's kind of lame, but it's stuck, and so on and so forth. This is super vital. They should be the review team should be sales managers and sales individuals. That's who your content's going to, and that's what this should be made up of. Minimum delivery requirements. This is the actual delivery of the content and or training. We'll talk very briefly about that at the end here. So the intake documentation, what does it look like? This was a sloppy attempt that I've had recently. We have our yearly conference, and so my PMMs were coming to me saying, have to release this. I'm sure we all can relate to that, where it's like, we're pushing all this stuff, and I was like, stop. Guys, like what you're saying, there's only 3 core launches. All the other 27 things is just going to be noisy for my sales reps. If it doesn't fall in those 3 launches, I don't really want to hear about it. Neither do they, because those 3 launches, the only 3 that are going to move the needle, right? I think the most important things that I've asked in this thing are these 4 questions. Expected results for attendees. So if you're going to do a live training, or if you're going to push this out into a programmatical way, maybe it's online or e-learning, what's the expected results for the person listening to it or the attendee? The second one is content needed to achieve expected results. If you're going to identify what that content is, you better have an outcome, right? So I want the PMM to come up with that first, and then me being the person who knows what sales needs, I will then say yes or no. Is this going to be effective or not? What are we asking the reps to do differently today? If you have a sales playbook, what's different about what they're going to learn during this, and have we identified that? And then that last one is, on average, how often will the content be used, right? So that's that 7-day thing. If you guys do these things, you will start to see the trend line move in your favor, right? And I know a lot of you probably do this already. I'm just putting a little bit of structure behind it. So established consumption framework. This is huge, especially at Zendesk, where we have segmentation, we have regions, we have all of the different aspects that make selling and creating content very complicated, right? So again, who's consuming it? Why do they need to consume it? How should they be consuming the content? Those are 3 questions you can ask every single time. And really pay attention to what people are saying. If they don't have like a segment, or if they don't have a buyer profile, we have to get more granular on that stuff, or we're just going to blanket statement our AEs with content, that one-to-many approach that is ineffective, which again will then lead them leaving saying that was useless or I didn't get anything out of that. So we've implemented this, again, kind of lame, but we're enabling people, so that's what we do, come up with lame stuff. The skim, swim, dive model. This is something that we just do from our own team's perspective, but really this is our content consumption framework, right? If I'm a rep and I'm put in a situation, do I need to learn something at full depth, or do I just need to graze over it, have knowledge that it exists, and then when it's more relevant, I can dive as I see fit, right? A good example of this is absolutely the battle card thing, competitive. So if we just take that, for example, we shouldn't necessarily, you probably have your 3 core competitors. Anything outside of that, it's probably not happening every 7 days, so it's not going to land if you do an actual session on it. So again, you probably want to create that skim model of content consumption, right? So that battle card and saying like, hey, you can go find it when you need it. The next one is swim. Maybe you need a live webinar, right? If it's happening more often, plus the battle card. And then of course, if this is something they deal with every day, so if this would be a Zendesk versus a Freshworks or a Salesforce, we talk about this all the time, right? So then I would probably, do something more at depth and do all 3 of those things from a content perspective. Cool. Okay, and then establish the Tiger team. I think this is probably the most important thing that any of us can do. Our content should be pushed through this team every single time for big launches. I'm not saying tiny feature releases here, guys. I'm not saying waste your time and do this every time, but for anything big, again, maybe a yearly conference or whatever, really identify some individuals that are high performing and you can push that content through. This is vital to the success of what you're doing. Okay, so number 4, and we'll spend the last few minutes here talking about delivery requirements. Again, I don't know that I'm an expert for standing in front of people and giving presentations, or standing in front of a group of AEs and giving presentations. I think those are tough, depending on if you're the expert or if you're not, and who you're using. So I've just thrown a few things in here that we should be thinking about and that I make sure I bring in. So AEs feel like they've actually learned something from a delivery standpoint, right? So with that, we'll go into the last one here. Our training and delivery might have been below average. So again, sticking with that, did they care or did they not? This might be one of the reasons they didn't care about our stuff. This stat is fun, and by fun I mean terrible. That doesn't scare you guys? That scares me. Like 12% of employees apply new skills learned in L&D programs to their jobs. Man, that means we do a lot of, that means I should only be working 45 minutes a week, since that's about all they take in. We do a lot of stuff, and I want to make sure that, we should be protective about how much time and effort we're putting into stuff, and what's actually being consumed. So training and delivery is obviously big, and I think this could be a whole day's session in general. But the first one is expertise. Have somebody else come on your training. If you don't have an AE presenting with you, or if you don't have a manager presenting with you, it's not going to land as well. That's just the reality, right? I think anytime I do this, I pick 3 people before I actually present, and I call them out religiously throughout the actual presentation, whether they're good or not. They might not even know that I've picked them, but that's what I do to make sure that I have engagement. We do a lot of online or like Zoom record or Zoom live trainings. Tough to manage a room when you're doing it over Zoom. Pick 3 to 5 people, call on them, different offices, different desk locations. Do that. You'll get a lot more engagement out of that. This is just to exemplify, I'm not a good golfer, he is. So would you rather be trained by somebody who knows what they're doing versus somebody who does sales enablement stuff all day? I would probably go with him. But again, this is so vital to the success of what we do. Storytelling. This is a tough one. Storytelling is really hard. Telling a good story to your reps, having that expert come in, having reasons, having customer examples, applying all that to a delivery program is really tough. But take some time and think about that. Think about the flow. Think about the outcome, providing examples, pull stats, create an entire story about why you're delivering what you're delivering. Love this slide. Somebody told me this once when we talked about just presenting in general. Facts tell, stories sell, experts prove. This is something that I take very seriously. Again, bringing other people in to make sure that I'm not the only one doing the talking. That's why I asked Scott that next time we should be doing this together so we can bounce off of one another rather than just speaking at all of you. Because again, that's a tough environment to learn from. And then the last one's application. I think this was touched on just a bit. Things should be applied at all times. In a training session, if it's live, my recommendation is get them through the first time of doing something within that training session or within an hour. Every single time I do something live, I piggyback it with a 30-minute certification. Call them certifications. That's probably a big word for what it actually is. It's more of just a knowledge check. But immediately, the number one thing that I've heard is from all managers is they just need to get through it once. They just need to get through it once. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I'm going to give you the once. I'll give you the one time. I'll give you a live example. And I'll do this every single time to make sure that I'm giving you the once. And how do you make sure that it is taken further? I think there was a question before about, manager coaching. We're going through a huge change management right now. We're focusing more on the manager coaching aspects than we are the actual rep coaching aspects at Zendesk, because that's where everything happens, is that relationship. Fair enough? Okay, so we rounded a few things out. Lacked relevance and proof of importance. Delivery was below average. Our enablement content was shitty. So did we gain any tactics? Raise your hand if you learned anything new. Sweet, not 100%. Damn it. What'd you learn? Yeah, absolutely. What else? Sure. Cool. What about over here? Anything? I'm going to keep calling on you since you make eye contact. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Anybody going to save any time from what they learned today? Hopefully. Maybe a little bit. Time is one of the biggest assets we have, guys. We do so much stuff. And so trying to minimize the noise and the inefficiencies that come with this job are super vital to how successful we are as an enablement organization. Don't forget this as you walk out. If there's anything that I've done, this is probably the biggest thing. People forget stuff way too fast. Make sure that anything you do, you're going through the lens of, hey, are they going to remember this? Is it applied? How many times is it being used? That stuff. Be the filter, be the change, be the leader. We move the needle. And the last thing I'll end you with is stop trying to make fetch happen, guys. Shitty training is all too common. Shitty programs are all too common. Stop trying to force the function. Start using your reps for resources. And I think you guys will see a very, very quick change. Yeah. Every single day. I probably have Slack messages right now asking for time. We have 3 key ways you can get in front of my reps. We have a weekly webinar that is segmented to all SMB, commercial, and enterprise. Technical is also roped in there. That's one way. So if it fits in more of a general capacity, great. We also just rolled out what we call podcasts, video podcasts. That's your second way. So basically these are pre-recorded sessions that you're going to be assigned weekly. Content is usually going to come from PMM, so that's your second option. If it's something that's absolutely vital to the success of the organization, we can do live trainings. If it doesn't fit in one of those three things, you better have a really good reason, or the answer is no, or think of another way to deliver this content. One-pagers, video, etc. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all expertise and examples. You call out this slide's really distracting, sorry. I'm just like seeing him, like getting this twitch. Yes, absolutely. I think you break up your section, and I use this, this sounds so stupid, I don't even have kids, but your listening ears, right? Like, and I literally put on the slide, hey, SMB reps, this is relevant to you. Enterprise reps, this is relevant to you. If you have to blanket train, it's a tough world to live in. I understand that. But there are definitely ways you can do it. Customer examples, expertise, who you're pulling in, how you're pulling them in, put it on a slide, put it in the follow-up, have separate follow-up tracks. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Yeah.
How are you guys tracking success for someone who needs training? Documents or
Yeah, it's a good question. The question was, how do you quantify success for training? I think it's a pretty general question. I think Scott touched on this a little bit, but it's all stage sales cycle related or sales process related. Again, we use MEDPIC. I'll look at things like conversion rates of my leads coming in. I'll look at how many meetings have landed. I'll look at who's demonstrated and what the conversion rate is after that. Obviously, if trend lines are going up, that's important. I think I love the diagram of, hey, we're training this and the line moved. Scott can, I'm sure, talk to this much better than I can, but we need to understand what we're focusing on. I think, if it's product related, it's likely on the back end if it's incoming leads, but if you're prospecting, the market. So again, that's totally going to drive what you're monitoring, what you're measuring for success. Consumption of content is not a measurement of success. It's what it relates to in revenue and the actual metrics of what the salespeople are doing. Probably doesn't answer your question fully, but it's a tough one. It's a big question. Yeah. Yeah, so it's a good question. How is it applied in 7 days, and how do I manage that? First and foremost, I get them through the first one, and I do count that to a degree, right? I think if we look at this again, right, I mean, the drop-off is huge. You have 20 minutes and it's not applied. That's why I try and get through number one as like that first step. Number two is all, again, dependent. I should only be training them if they're doing this within 7 days anyway, right? Like I should only be doing a live training. And so it'll fall in here somewhere. I can't force leads to come in and ask about our professional services package, right? However, I also put a management check in there, right? So all my reps have, all teams, I'm sure, have one-on-ones with their manager. That's where that coaching document comes in. I give an example. I say, walk me through it, right? Like that's the second check. So within 7 days, I should have 2 practice points, right? I should have 2 points. And then hopefully the topic that we chose falls within the 7-day parameters with the customer, which would be number 3, which hopefully solidifies what we're doing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I join calls all the time. Yep, all the time. I spend probably too much time doing that, but that's the only way we can be successful and validate. Frankly, managers are even too far away sometimes, right? Like managers just do reporting and forecasting and this and that. If you don't put your AE hat on and your sales hat on, it's just, we're just wasting our time. And so as much time as I possibly can. Yeah. Cool. Oh yeah. Yeah, I would say 2 or 3 a week in multiple capacities. Silent, I don't help in any, I don't say anything. I also think this is where technology comes into play. Gong, Chorus, listening to Zoom recordings, having that library of success, the good, the bad, and the ugly, what that looks like, so you can apply those to everything you're doing. Am I out of time there, Scott? Awesome. I wasn't paying attention, so thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.